Hello, Internet, and welcome to episode number 261 of the Comic Watchers Show. He's Chad, I'm Matt. We love comics, and this is our show where we get to talk about them. So with us this week, we are talking about Princess Guinevere and the Jewel Riders, Volume 2, Quest for Avalon, courtesy of our friends at Mad Cave. And we are here with Sarah Davidson and Lauren Hitzhusen. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. And yeah, absolutely. This is a book that's I guess a lot of folks have been talking about for a while, and we're eager to talk with you about it. So who is Princess Guinevere? Let's just start there.
So Princess Guinevere is do you want this from like a character perspective or from a I guess a greater pop culture perspective?
Well, how about we go back to like the '90s cartoon that I don't remember?
Yes. So Princess Guinevere and the Jewel Riders is a cartoon that ran for 2 seasons in the early '90s. There's a chance that you remember it under a different title, which is Starla and the Jewel Riders. Actually, in the other 90 countries that this show ran in, it ran under some variation of Starla and the Jewel Riders. The United States was the only country that got Guinevere. And it only ran for 2 seasons just because Sailor Moon took off at such a rate. Sailor Moon got so popular and really just like became the magical girl show in America. But I think for a lot of Jewel Riders fans, like we still have such a nostalgia for how candy colored and bright this show was. It's Arthurian magical girls. Guinevere is not like Arthur's Guinevere. I think one of the interesting things about the world of Princess Guinevere is there is no Arthur. He's just not there. There's a Merlin, but there's no Arthur. There's a Morgana. No Arthur.
I'm sensing a trend.
And it's a very, I think now that we're 30 years after the release of the show, you can really see a lot of very kind of typical magical girl things in the show. There's transformation, there's magic, there's distribution of magic via a system, talking animals, their armor levels up as they get stronger. It's a very nostalgic magical girl show from the 90s that we are lucky enough to rework into young adult graphic novels in the modern day. And that is who Guinevere is. Guinevere is headstrong. Guinevere is brave. Guinevere is funny. She's a little sarcastic. She wants more than anything to remain a Jewel Rider and not. She's torn between remaining a Jewel Rider and becoming a queen, even though she knows that's her destiny.
I have a question. I know that there's kind of like it's what is King Arthur and the Knights of Justice? Are they 2 separate worlds, or because I know they're both kind of the same type of thing?
Yes, so they are 2 separate. So they're made by the same company, the same animation company. Made both shows, owned by the same licensor, 41 Entertainment. We made both comics, but they're 2 separate worlds. They have 2 different Merlins, 2 different Morganas. And it was really funny working on both books at the same time because the Merlins are so totally different and the Camelots are completely different. The systems of magic are totally different. And there's a Guinevere in each world, but Guinevere is spelled differently. So I had to be very careful that I was spelling Guinevere right when we were working.
Okay, because I know that Joe Corolla is writing the King Arthur one for Maverick.
Yes, and he is so much fun to talk with and work with.
And so, I know that it's the this series is written by Jordi Belair, which I know that she's probably better known as a colorist. But how are you guys? What are your roles in the series?
Well, I'm the colorist on the series. So I've had the absolute joy of getting to really bust out like all of my favorite sparkle brushes and bright rainbow colors and Lisa Frank color palettes. Literally, like Lauren told me, like go to town, make it as sparkly and shiny as you want to, and I have loved every minute of it. I originally got the job because I found out that Maverick got the license to this series, and I like freaked out. I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this is happening. This is the world we live in now." And I was working on a separate project with a different editor at Mad Cave, and I emailed my editor. I was like, "If y'all ever need somebody on this series or something like it, talk to me. I am a huge Magical Girl fan. I literally have a Sailor Moon tattoo." And she got me in touch with Lauren, and Lauren was like, "Oh, well, we have like a lead artist, but do you color?" And I was like, "Why, yes, I do." And the rest is history.
I think the original email I sent you was candy colored, and you delivered. It was just that first batch of colors on book 1. I just remember sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, Sarah gets it. Like, Sarah knows exactly what we are doing and where we are going with this. And I know Jordi is really known for her writing, but I got the chance to work with Jordi when I was working at Valiant, and Jordi and I really like hit it off. And when I came to work for Maverick, she was one of those people where I was like, gosh, I really want to work with her again. And I knew that she really loved magical girls. And when we got the opportunity to work on this license, she was the first person I reached out to. And I said, you know what, just watch the pilot, see what you think. And the pilot of the show is very goofy. They are rescuing Sunstar, who is the unicorn, and a winged unicorn. She's the only unicorn with wings in all of Avalon, and she cannot fly. And every other unicorn teases her mercilessly for this. And the entire pilot is her like falling off of cliffs and being made fun of by her family. And like Jordi messaged me back. She's like, yeah, okay, this is kind of awesome. I'm in. And we really just built a dream team. And when we were looking at it visually, we wanted to update the art, because when you look at 90s animation, it all visually has kind of the same source of inspiration. And when you look at animation now, it's all definitely drawn from manga and anime. And so that's why we went to Koi. And you can see in the art here, we're drawing from manga and anime. And we really, and Chaz's lettering on this book is so fun and so upbeat. It's just such a pretty book. And every time Sarah turned in new colors on this book, I'm just going to keep bragging about you because you're here. And like, I would just sit there at my desk and be like, look at how pretty this book is that we're like working on. Look at how brightly colored it is. Look at how everything glows. Like, Lady Kale is absolutely popping off the page when she appears, like in her villain form. Like, the glow that Sarah puts behind the villain almost makes her 3-dimensional. It's incredible. It really is. The book absolutely just comes to life. And I think that the teams for Guinevere and Arthur are so different, but they work together as separate teams like so well that kind of like the original TV shows, they feel like siblings in the same way that the original TV shows felt like siblings. These are my sibling books.
So Lauren, how do you keep all your notes straight between the two siblings then?
I have to remind myself that Gwen with a W goes in my pink book, and Gwen with a U goes in the football book. My short Merlin is in Guinevere. My tall Merlin goes in Arthur. Morgana in Guinevere is an elf, which is something that I kind of forget about. And then obviously we did see Morgana in the first Arthur book. And because she is the big bad even for season 1 of the King Arthur TV show. So we see a lot of her already. Whereas we see Lady Kale for all of season 1 of Guinevere. So it's a lot of spell checking and checking the heights of my Merlins. How tall is my Merlin, and does he come with an owl?
Sarah, I think you were about to say something.
Good.
Sorry. Yeah. What was up?
Oh no, I thought you were starting to say something. I'm sorry.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
So stepping back, what is your history as a reader of comic books, if there is one, and how did you get into your respective parts of the industry?
You feel free to go first, Laura, and I'll follow up.
I always joke that I got into comics a little late. I did not read my first. I read newspaper comics growing up, but I didn't read my first comic book until I was 16 or 17. Which, compared to like when I talk to other people, does feel very, very late. And it was basically like I just kind of woke up one morning and decided it was something I wanted to do. And I was pretty much hooked right after that. One of the very first books I read was Batman: The Long Halloween. And yeah, it was a very strong start. I feel like if one of the first 5 comics you read is that, it's a really strong start. And it was one of those things that I chose Batman because I already knew that I liked the Justice League TV show. I liked Batman the Animated Series. I really enjoyed the Batman and Robin movie. So I figured the jump into comics could not be that complicated. I mean, I was wrong. It was actually kind of a complicated jump into comics. But once I figured out kind of graphic novels and trade paperbacks, it wasn't that difficult. And that was my jump. And then I remember reading, some random trade paperback and noticing that there were people called editors credited. And thinking, hey, I'm an editor for my school's literary magazine. I wonder what editors do in comics. And I couldn't figure it out, couldn't figure out how to do it, kind of forgot about it. And then one thing led to another, and I decided I was going to pursue editorial basically I suddenly remembered that I wanted to do it at the end of college and decided to pursue it in grad school, moved to New York, and did my master's in publishing at NYU. And pursued an internship. And when I moved to New York, all of the publishing companies moved out of New York, like that year. Except for Valiant Entertainment. I applied to their internship 6 times, never got a response, finally bought a ticket to a local convention and went up to the booth and said, look, can you please just reject me? I keep applying to your internship. I haven't heard back. And the guy at the booth said, I don't run the internship program, but here's my card. Send me your resume. I'll figure out what's going on. And they ended up accepting me. And like 2 weeks into my internship, the guy who ran the internship program came up to me and said, I found all your applications in my spam folder. So they hired me out of that internship. And that's literally, I am here because I caught Batman and Robin on TV one day and then woke up one morning and said, I think I'll get into comics.
Sarah, how about your secret origin?
I feel like my secret origin is kind of the total opposite of Lauren. I grew up reading comics since the day I was born. I grew up on Calvin and Hobbes. Like, that was my life. I was constantly just like reading books, reading comics, making my own comics. I remember my first comic that I drew in second grade about Super Pickle. He was, you know, an innocuous pickle by day and a super pickle by night. And I grew up knowing like my entire life that I wanted to do comics and it was something that I wanted to make a career of. Then, you know, life happened and like, you know, having to get a real job and having to go to college and get a real degree and like all of this other stuff. And like a little at a time, that dream of doing comics just kind of kept slipping away in favor of, you know, real world nonsense. And then I had turned 30 years old. I was working at a shipping and logistics company at a university in Texas. And my manager just offered me a promotion to site manager so that I would run the entire facility. And I was like, oh my God, if I take this promotion, I will be doing this job for the rest of my life. And that just, it wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't what I envisioned for myself. It wasn't satisfying. So me and my husband packed up everything, moved across the country so I could go to art school. I attended SCAD and went to an undergrad degree at 30 years old, which was not awkward at all. And that really reignited like that passion and that love and that drive. And I was like, this is it. Like, this is my make or break. I am doing this. And, you know, I busted my ass. I learned everything I could learn. I met with everybody I could meet with and asked every question humanly possible under the sun, and slowly started like working my way into things. I did like some freelance pages for Comics Experience. My first coloring jobs were, I colored Super Boba Cafe for Nidhi Chinani and Swing for Audrey Meeker. And that's sort of how I got my start doing the whole colorist thing. And my first original graphic novel is also been published through Paper Cuts, which is an imprint of my cave. And so things are just, it's all kind of coming together. It's all working out and it's been really great.
And that graphic novel is Jackson's Wilder Adventures. I know that's not the book that we're talking about now, but I'm not going to let you get away without plugging it.
I was literally about to say, don't be shy.
Not even my book. It's not my imprint, but I'm going to hype you.
Yes, it's called Jackson's Wilder Adventures. It's an early readers nonfiction series about a kid who like explores nature and learns about wild animals to sort of help put his own life into perspective. And it's
that's awesome.
Cool and fun and cute.
We were just at the Texas Library Association's big conference, and so many librarians were really excited to see a book that focused on animals and on their habitats. And Jackson's sidekick is a thylacine, which is a what? Oh my gosh, what is the other name for a thylacine? Why can I only remember thylacine?
Tasmanian
tiger. Tasmanian tiger. And that was also a really popular animal among the librarians. And I was just very excited for you.
It's all very exciting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Paper Cuts is a great imprint to be published on anyway. And now here you are on Maverick.
Yeah, and it's been great. Everybody, like all of the editors I've worked with there have all been fantastic. Obviously, Lauren's great. So it's been a really, really genuinely good experience all around.
So what was it about this, about Princess Guinevere that, you know, appealed to the Mad Cave Maverick imprint?
So at the reason we kind of were drawn to it was at one point our president Mark Irwin said, "Hey, if anyone has any ideas for licenses that you think we should pursue, let me know." And one of the things that I appreciate about Mark Irwin is that he's always down to listen to ideas, no matter how out of the box they are. And I kind of said to myself, all right, like now's the time to shoot my shot. You're gonna talk to the president of your company about this thing that you really liked when you were 5. And you're gonna be professional and normal about it.
Normal is harder to pull off when you love something than most people realize.
So I explained to him, I was like, it's a 2-season TV show. And he said, I've never heard of it. And I was like, that's right. It's okay. I have heard that for the last 25 years. And he said, do you know who owns the license? And I said, nope, not a clue, but I can figure it out. And I did figure it out. And he said, can you kind of do a write-up about what you would do if we had the license? Because this sounds like it's a show for little kids. How would you age it up? And so I wrote kind of almost a personal essay about how much the show meant to me, talking about where I saw the girls 1 or 2 years down the line, where the show had ended, what I would do with them, how I would be respectful of where the show had been, while also making it a little bit more modern. And sent that off, and then all of a sudden we had it. And oh my goodness, I thought my husband was going to have to peel me off the ceiling. Like when I got that email, our apartment had a very strange layout where we essentially had like a large column in the middle of it that had our washer and dryer, and I was doing laps around our washer and dryer, just going, okay, now I have to figure out what step 2 is, because I did not know what was going to happen after step 1. And yeah, it was really okay, so we have this license, and I had pitched this where this idea of, all right, so here's what would happen. Like, we're kind of at the end of adventure. Like, the adventures are still happening, but we kind of have to think about adulthood a little bit. And that was the pitch. And they really liked it. And that's where it came from. And every day I'm very grateful that Mark was open to the idea of hearing me out on a show that he had never heard of. So thank you again, Mark, for letting me reboot a show that you'd never heard of.
So this
Are
is
there any? Oh, go ahead.
This is volume 2. So what was the reception like to volume 1? I mean, obviously it was positive enough that we are talking about volume 2. So, but I'm just curious because this is all very new to me, and I would like to know as much as I can to learn about it.
The reception to volume 1 was really exciting because I think fans of anything that has kind of a small fandom can relate to when you've been talking to the same very small group of people for a long time about your fandom, and all of a sudden you get new media. You have something new to talk about, and how exciting that is. And so it was exciting to have something new to talk about. And the reception was really, really, really positive. But it was great. And I think I was a little surprised that, I think because I'd been in my own world, that like people had like different thoughts than I did on a few things. Which I don't want to, I'm not going to get into the different thoughts. I don't want to accidentally start a thing. But it was so positive because everyone really liked it. They liked what we had done. and they liked the directions that we had taken things because we hadn't changed too much. One of the things that Coy and I did when we approached the designs of the girls was we had focused on, okay, every girl has something different like about her costume, and let's just enhance that. So for Fallon, we're focusing on the boots. Okay, let's lean into the boots a little more. Let's make them look more like riding boots. Great. And I think the big question we got is, okay, but Lady Kale was gone at the end of season 2. Why did you bring her back? And it's because she's iconic. She's very cool, and she's very hard to ignore. But the reception was so positive, and I think it made me really happy, and it was really exciting to. I keep thinking about this one moment over and over. We threw a launch party at the Houston Toy Museum for the books, where the Houston Toy Museum played episodes of both King Arthur and Guinevere, and the owner of the Toy Museum edited in commercials from the early 90s into the episodes he was showing. So you'd see like a promo for McDonald's from 1994 in the middle of the episode. It was so much fun. And you had unlimited cereal, and I was there selling books. And I sat there watching a girl who was 7 or 8, and she just bought a book from me. And she walked in reading one book, and she'd bought a copy of Guinevere. And she was sitting at a table with a bowl of cereal, and she was sitting there reading Guinevere. And then she looked up, and she was watching an episode, and she looked down and realized that's what she was reading. And she just kept going back and forth between the book and the episode. And all I could think of was, like, even if we don't get a book 2, like, I have this moment, and that's all I need. And I'm inexplicably getting, like, very choked up talking about this moment with this random girl that I was looking at. But yeah, reception was really positive, and we got a book 2, and I let out a happy yell when Mike Martz told me we got a book 2.
That's pretty awesome. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah.
Chad?
So what, if any, challenges did you face when you, in bringing and updating the characters from the 90s models and story to the modern updating, or is in the book?
I wanna shout out Sarah real quick, because one of the things that often comes up in fan art, especially of Fallon, is that there is a lot of whitewashing of Fallon that happens. But Sarah, you were so careful to be sure that Fallon was always depicted with her skin tone. And I'm really, really grateful for the work that you put into that, because that was the very first thing I saw people comment on when art of her showed up. It was, oh my God, Fallon is Black. And it was just extremely celebratory across the board. And I was high-fiving myself, and had you been not 1,000 miles across the country, I would have been excited with you too. And so it was just knowing that, like, we were doing that right. But updating it almost, I think it was remembering where we had come from. I think there were parts of King Arthur that were a little bit more difficult to update, but with Guinevere, so much of it is fantasy that it was easier to update. One thing that comes to mind is that in volume 1, I gave you a note that we had colored a cat the wrong color. Spike was white instead of blue.
Yeah, there were a couple of times where I would be like in the middle of coloring, and I would have to email Lauren and be like, does this character exist? Like, does this random one person in the background of this one panel exist? Like, do I have to reference colors for this person, or can I just, like, go with whatever? And Lauren, every single time, she was so on the ball. She's like, oh, that's actually this person, and here's their reference costume. And
here are these sheep that have showed up in a single episode that we've decided are major characters now. I think when it came to updating it, especially for volume 2, so much of what we've done with Guinevere, because it has such a passionate fan base, is figuring out how to balance paying an homage to the original show while not losing new fans. Um, I actually don't know how much of Volume 2 has been released as previous, so I don't know what I can say. So I'm going to be super vague. Uh, but there's a really exciting homage at the beginning of Volume 2 to a kind of a fan favorite thing. And we wanted to be sure that we made it super clear, like, what this was. And I think that fans are going to be excited about it. And we did update the designs there, but we didn't want to deviate too far from what they originally were. And I know that's not a super detailed answer to your question, but I am not entirely sure if those pages are out there. So I don't know what I can say. Welcome to the publishing black hole where I don't know. Those pages exist in limbo to me.
So it goes. So, what was it? What was it like, Sarah and Lauren, working with Jordi Belair as writer? I mean, what was the process like?
So on my end, I didn't really get a chance to interact with Jordi. By the time I was like working on pages, like the script had already been written, the art was already done. I would read Jordi's script as I was coloring just to make sure I was like, the time of day is right and the color of this thing is right. But like her writing was always so much fun to read. Like, so many comic scripts are so dry. Like, it's very like technical, like this is happening. And hers were just fun. She would just throw in like random notes. She would include like pictures and links to other things where she's like, it's kind of like this, just go with it. So they were like genuinely fun to read and like is, very easy to work from, which is great.
She writes scripts in a very conversational way where you feel like you're sitting next to her talking to her. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so fun working with her is you almost feel like you're sitting at lunch with someone going, and this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And every once in a while when I get scripts from her, there'd be almost like paragraph in there that would have this chunk in the middle that say, Lauren, please, can we do this? Can we do this? And I would just, in a note be like, yes, we can absolutely do this. I think that's a great idea. But let's flesh this out. She is incredibly creative. And she brought I think one of my favorite things that she did was she brought some real depth to some characters that did not originally have they did have depth, but there's only so much you can show in a 22-minute cartoon. And I think that's one of those things that I'm glad the comic let us explore is in the original show, you have all of these single lines that are said that we never get to expand upon. At one point in time, Fallon says she never talked to her parents. And when I was watching the show as a kid, you're like, okay, that's fine. Very relatable content. I am 5. But as an adult, that gave me pause because that's a really big thing to say. That you stop talking to your parents entirely. That's a really huge thing to say. And that was something that I brought up to Jordi, that there are all these things that are said in the show that are a little like, hey, these characters have a lot of things going on. Would you be interested in us going through and kind of grabbing these things and expanding on them? And Jordi said, I'm down. Let's do it. And she got really excited about the idea of the Queen and Kale and the fact that they're twins and one of them is good and one of them is evil. And what is that entire internal battle like for both of them? And I think that's something that is really unique about the book and is something that, the show wouldn't have gotten a chance to explore. And that's something that I think that only Jordi would have pulled from the show. So I think that is something truly unique about working with Jordi. and also that she's just an absolute riot and a half. She is so very funny. And
So
I love
Sarah,
the
tell
growth
us.
that she gave Drake. Sorry.
So, Sarah, tell us a little bit about your process of coloring. Digitally, do you digitally color, or what is your process, and how do you go about it?
Yeah. So anytime I would get like a new chapter in the drive, first thing I do is I read the script as I'm looking at the pages so that I know what's going on, sort of keep in mind things that need to happen or like consistency things that need to be maintained across the chapter. I work all digitally. I work in Clip Studio. It's my favorite program in the universe. It's so fun and easy. I usually go through and I'll just like block in all of the character colors because I know that like those are going to be relatively consistent. It'll change depending on lighting and whatever. And then as I go through like my second pass of all of the pages, I start planning out what my color palettes are going to be. Like I'm thinking about the time of day. I'm thinking about the emotion I'm trying to convey. Like, do I need like a dark scene so that the magical superpowers will look even cooler and shinier? Or like this scene is all happening in the snow. So how do I make the snow look interesting and not just like a blank field of white and things like that. And yeah, I just sort of go through a page at a time and just work it out as I go. For me, coloring just is fun and easy. Like it's the fun, easy part of doing comics. Like I feel like every other part of the process takes so much thought and effort and work. And then coloring is where you're just like relaxing and you're doing a coloring book and you're adding sparkles and magic. And like that's to me where a page really feels finished and where it really comes alive. And so it's always been my favorite part of the process for a long time.
Sarah,
And what's the biggest?
Oh,
I was just going to say, what's the biggest challenge you found? Working on the book.
I was kind of thinking about this while we were talking, and I think the hardest sequence, like all of these magic scenes and like lightning battles and things like that, those were so fun and easy. Like everyone's like, oh, the crazy effects have to be so hard. That's so fun and easy. I think the most challenging like sequence was in volume 1, I believe, where Merlin's whole house was like a mess and he was floating everything around to try and put it together, like very Disney Merlin style. And it was just like all of these panels and all of these things like overlapping and overlaying each other. And like that was the most challenging page that I had to do, I think, to make all of these like literally like 100 floating things on this page feel like individual distinct elements without the entire page feeling cluttered and chaotic and unreadable. So that one page I had to almost entirely redo like 3 times, which never happens. It was a complex thing to tackle, and hopefully I got it right at the end.
It does look really good. I also want to compliment you on just like the sheer number of rocks that you had to color in this, and stones and gems that all are in various stages of reflecting with light hitting them at different angles all the time forever, which I'm sure was like, it's a very rock heavy book. Some kids are dinosaur kids. I was a rock kid, which is why I love this show so much.
Well, and there's like that ice crystal cavern thing. And so it's like you have like a glowing green from the stone, but also a glowing orange from a light source. And then everything is reflecting off of the ice. Those are fun pages. That was just fun.
Sarah, I was going to ask you who some of your coloring inspirations are.
Oh gosh. This is going to be where it's really embarrassing because I am sorely lacking in knowing other colorists, and I'm so ashamed and I feel so bad. Like there are some like colorist mentors who have been helping me a lot, like Nolan Woodard. I'm in a Discord server with him. I've met him in person a few times, and just being able to talk with him and listen to him talk about not just coloring, but like the history of coloring and how printing works through like every step of the process. It's like this man knows more about coloring and printing than any other human being alive, and more than anyone has ever forgotten. And it's just he's been extremely helpful in figuring out like the little technical things of doing colorist work that like nobody really tells you and nobody really teaches you, and you're sort of just expected to know it. So he was extremely helpful in sort of helping me overcome those early hurdles of like figuring out exactly how to be a professional colorist.
Chad?
Oh, so is there a possibility of a King Arthur and Guinevere crossover? Then you'll have to be sure to get your Merlins in order. Maybe it could be like Crisis on Infinite Merlins or something.
Crisis on Infinite Merlins.
That's good.
Hang on. I have to figure out how exactly I can. So we did. I have to give a pause on that question because we had announced a crossover for it. With like the first ever crossover was announced as part of Free Comic Book Day, but was one of our canceled titles. I'm not sure what has become of that title. But if you hang tight, I am sure, like not hang tight within this moment, but like stay tuned to our social media. I'm sure there'll be an announcement of what is going to become of that. So there is one. I just don't know what is going to become of it. And yes, it was a Crisis on Infinite Merlin. But I feel like I'm possibly allowed to say that because we did announce it as part of Free Comic Book Day. And it did exist at one point. That was the sound of me desperately Googling whether or not we had announced it.
When Guinevere's collide.
I can find it. That's my rule. Is I'm like, if it's on Google, someone else has said it.
Go ahead.
Is there a favorite character that has become a favorite, since the books have come out, or as you've worked on the project, a favorite character?
I've always just been a big fan of Tamara. Her power is love and friendship, and she collects all of the cute little animals that like she just has this connection with, and she's so optimistic and hopeful and cute, and her little symbol is the little heart. Like, I don't know, it hits all of those like nostalgic magical girl tropes that I love about that genre so much. So she's always been one of my favorites.
I think if you asked anyone who worked on the book, we would all say, well, I started the book loving Tamara, and now that I've finished the book, I still love Tamara. I'm pretty sure working with Jordy, we both had to stop ourselves from making it the Tamara show starring Tamara and I guess some other people. Like, we had some conversations early on where I had to be like, I know what we want, but this is technically called Guinevere and the Jewel Riders.
What is it about Tamara that speaks so loudly to you and others?
She's kind. She also the rules of magic in this book are that you get one special friend, you get one animal companion, and Tamara has like 7. And that seems unfair to me, and maybe I want 7 animal companions. Her power is love. She always sees the best in people. She kind of sows peace wherever she goes. I think she has the best costume.
Mm-hmm.
And I love her hair. I love her skirt. I love the little hood she has on her cloak. I love her little heart. But it's very funny how like the entire team is pretty much at no, it's Tamara. Although I will say that I think growing up, I don't remember liking. I loved Tamara so much, but what we've done with Fallon as a character, where she is leading the pack and she's struggling with this idea of the weight of leadership and how can she command all these people. I really like love and respect her so much as a character now. And not that I didn't love her before, but I think this journey that we've taken her on, I see a lot of, I see a character that like I wish I had seen as a teenager there, and I think that's something I'm really excited for readers to get to see. But Tamara is I think I'm just a Tamara girly through and through. Very clearly remember sending that this is not Tamara and the Jewel Riders email to Jordy, calling myself out too, being like, I'm in the same boat, girl. I'm so sorry. She's got her unicorn, and then she's got a second unicorn, and she's a dragon, and she's a cat, and then there's another thing. She's got like 4 or 5 little critters that follow her around, and a bear.
There was a little bird, right?
And a bird, and a bear, like a full adult bear. That is not in the books, but it's in the TV show.
There's a spinoff right there.
Yeah, it sounds like Tamara's ready for a spinoff.
Yeah. Second best character, the biker sheep.
Tell us about the biker sheep.
The biker sheep appear in a single episode of the TV show, and when Jordy was working her way through the show, she sent me an email and she said, I need to talk to you about the sheep. And I said, okay. And she said, I need the sheep in the book. What can we do? And I was like, all right. We will make the sheep work into the book, because I think we were all so excited because there are so many. This Avalon is a world of little guys. If you are in need of a small critter, my goodness, Avalon has a lot of them, of all shapes and sizes. And the biker sheep are so silly and provided this great way to kind of lead us into the plot of book 1, and had a bunch of very funny puns, and I really loved the way that Chaz coordinated the colors of their speech bubbles with the fur colors that Sarah had provided. So they're beautifully color coordinated, and I think it kind of spoke to, and also they're very 90s. I don't think you can get around how absolutely 1990s the concept of a biker sheep is.
Yeah, they've got like the extremely goofy movie sunglasses.
It's got wraparound shades. They have somehow torn the sleeves off of their biker vest. And yeah,
sounds like another spinoff.
I think one of the things that I love about this book is that everyone was genuinely having such a good time all the time. Is that we all, at least for me, it felt like this was such a fun book to work on. We were all working on something that was just genuinely upbeat. Is candy colored. It's magical girls. There are talking animals. At the core, we're talking very high level, kind of like about forgiveness and about not just straight up forgiveness, but like forgiveness as a very complex thing and responsibility as a complicated thing. And we're being kind of goofy with it. And it was just fun to work with. And then, you turn the page and there's a sheep in wraparound shades, or you like turn the page and, there is one of Coy's just absolutely hilarious over the top facial expressions drawn on Drake, or Drake's wolf just being ridiculously sarcastic. It's just a magical book at its core. And I am so grateful that we've gotten to do a book 2. I wish that I could tell 5-year-old me that I got a chance to do this, because I don't know that 5-year-old me would understand what I do for work, but I think that 5-year-old me would. I think that 5-year-old me would at least be able to wrap her head around the idea that I do something that has to do with the Jewel Riders.
I think so. I help make comics.
Yeah.
There you go. Direct and to the point.
So are there,
Sarah,
I know you
Sarah,
had to mention.
can I ask what your favorite character to color is? Who your favorite girl is to color?
My favorite character to color, I'm going to tell you, as much as I love Tamara, she is my least favorite character to color, because her exact shade of magenta hair and her exact shade of that teal bodysuit do not exist in the CMYK color space. So every time I colored her, I'd be like, all right, which slight variation on this color am I going to work with this time? So I love Tamara. I hated coloring Tamara. I liked coloring Lady Kale, or like Morgana. Like, she was always just very cool, especially like the sort of like holography appearances of her with like the layering, like chromatic aberration and things like that. Like, she was always just very, very fun.
So is there, I know you kind of just mentioned that the story's about forgiveness. Is there any other takeaways that you hope readers take away from this, either the first or the second volume?
I kind of hope they take away the idea of balance, because I think that becomes a major theme for Gwen, is the idea of balance. Because at the beginning of book 1, we're presented with the idea that Gwen has to choose one or the other. You can be a Jewel Rider up until you become queen, the end. Because we know that your mom used to be a Jewel Rider, just like your dad used to be in the pack. It's a very like your parents used to be cool kind of conversation that she has, which is stuff we get from the show. Like, remember I talked about we get these individual lines about kind of, we're told that, the parents used to be these characters. And so I hope that they can take away the idea that, you have to find balance in all aspects of your life, that you don't have to go to these kind of extremes. Along with, the other things I said, like in terms of forgiveness and responsibility. What about you, Sarah?
I honestly just hope that it ignites a love for magical girls in somebody who has never had a chance to experience that genre before. Like for some little 6-year-old kid, this is going to be their very first magical girl book that they ever pick up. And then they're going to fall in love with it. And they're going to find out about things like Sailor Moon and Cardcaptor Sakura and She-Ra. And they're just going to go down a rabbit hole. And they're going to find like their new favorite thing in the entire universe because they picked up like this book. So that's kind of what I hope happens.
And when does the book volume 2 go on sale? Is it August, I believe? Am I right?
Yes. It comes out super close to my birthday, which is I'm 100% a coincidence. August 19th, 2025. Because I saw that and I was like, oh my goodness. But yes, and it comes out August 19th, 2025. You can pre-order it on the Mad Cave website or through wherever books are sold. I really, really love the cover of this one. I love that you get to see everyone's, and this is what they're called in the show, special friends. I keep using that term. But I love, and thank you to Coy once more for drawing approximately 9 million horses over the course of 2 books. About halfway through book 1, he sent me an email and he said I'd forgotten how many horses were in this show. And I said, yes, I'm really sorry.
Get used to it. There's more to come.
There's so many horses. And thank you for giving us the chance to talk about this book. And Sarah, your work on these books is just stunning. Like, you've made these books come alive and they just glow. And I cannot wait for everyone to see like some of the scenes in these books. I was revisiting it before the interview, and there are some moments that absolutely took my breath away because they absolutely just sing.
Thank you. You're so sweet.
Well, thank you both for coming and hanging out with us for the last hour. Where can we find you on social media?
I'm just at Sarah Davidson Art on Instagram. That's kind of the only social media I use anymore these days.
Sure.
I am pretty much only on Blue Sky. That's at Hitzhusen Lauren. That's just my last name and then my first name. Unless I've done that backwards, because it's possible it might have changed when I moved over from the other place. Let me check. No, it is the same, actually. Last name, then first name.
Okay.
You know you've got to the right place because my background photo is a photo of my cat doing this.
Awesome. Well, ladies, thank you very much for hanging out with us. The book is Princess Guinevere. I told you I'd screw it up at some point. We almost got through it. Princess Guinevere and the Jewel Riders, Volume 2, The Quest for Avalon, and it is on sale August 19th from Mad Cave's Maverick imprint. Thank you so very much for hanging out with us, and we will catch you next week. Chad, who do we have next week?
I forgot, and I can't get to my email to look at it.
It's okay. We will be back.
We do have somebody. We have a guest.
We promise we do. Okay. Well, in that case, everybody out there, the world might be kind of tough right now, but it doesn't have to be. Get out there, support local art, support your local comic book store, and just be kind to one another. Thank you very much for listening. And until next time, we are the Comic Watchers.